For those that have joined us, we are just getting our live stream started here to YouTube, and then we will be starting. So I just request that you bear with me for another moment here. It's always slow at this point, so.
I feel like I've got a sneeze brewing now.
Of course. All right, so I think we're ready to get started. I would like to take a moment to thank everybody for joining us. My name is Bethany. I am the program and volunteer coordinator for the Everett Rail Marshfield Public Library, and thank you for coming and joining us. We are going to be listening to Maida, our adult services librarian, speak about Clio and our digitized yearbooks or annuals. I hear both terms all the time.
I use both.
I am going to just comment, say that if you have any comments, questions, something's not working correctly, technical, let me know in the comment option or the chat feature. But if you have questions specifically about what our presentation is about this evening, please use the Q&A. Both should be at the bottom of the screen. And if you are using a mobile device, it might be buried under those three little dots, but you should be able to find it in one of those features at the bottom of your screen. Other than that, I think that's all I have to say. I want you to know that you can say these things or drop that information at any point during the presentation. I will be muted and my camera will be off, but I will be here helping with questions when I can and dealing with any technical issues as they come up. Hopefully we won't have any. And then if you have questions about something specifically, put those in the Q&A right away. We will get to them when we have a break or at the end of the presentation itself. But yeah, I think that's it for me. I'm going to hand everything over to Maida.
Okay, well, I'm going to share my screen here. Give me a sec. Oh, I can't do that right now. Bethany, it's telling me that you have disabled participant screen sharing. Thank you. Okay, give me a sec here, guys. Here we go. So, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining me tonight. We are going to be talking about two resources that are now available online through our website. It's the Digitized Annuals and Clio 3. A little bit about me first. I started as the Adult Services Librarian at the library back in January of 2020. Before that, I was the Adult and Teen Services Librarian at the New London Public Library for 7 years. I got my master's in library science from UW-Milwaukee and my undergrad from UW-Stevens Point, so I kind of feel like I've been going around in circles. I have family over by Appleton and some over about an hour south of Eau Claire. So Marshfield is kind of a nice compromise for me. My husband's family is down in Kentucky, just across the river from Cincinnati. Moving to Marshfield for this job was an opportunity for me to going from doing a little bit of everything in a small library to focusing on servicing adults in reference and collection development. Unfortunately, a pandemic year that wrapped up with my maternity leave was a really odd time to be moving to a new place, particularly for trying to serve the community. So it has been a while since I presented a program. You're going to have to bear with me a little bit here. So this has been my distraction for the past 5.5 months. Letty's also the reason I don't get much of any sleep these days, and I don't always make a lot of sense. Last night, we were actually up every hour for much of the night, so we'll see how this goes. I have to fight the urge to use this captive audience to show off my baby, but I just wanted to have a couple of pictures in here right away to get it out of my system. I am by no means the genealogy expert that we have with Don Schnitzler. I've done a few focus presentations on genealogy in the past. I've done a little bit of dabbling in my own genealogy and family history. The digitized annuals and Clio that we're talking about today are relatively new to me, and the program that we use to access them online, Riscarta, is also new to us. I'm not an expert here. I am excited to share what I have found, and I would love it if you share anything that you find with me. I'll have my email address at the end, so feel free to reach out to me if you have any exciting discoveries you need to show somebody, or if you have any questions. Okay, diving right in. Yearbooks or annuals can be a really important tool for genealogy projects. The scope, unfortunately, is pretty limited because they haven't been around for very long. Students began compiling yearbooks for themselves back in the 1600s, but it wasn't until the 19th century that annuals or class books were published. Yearbook photographs themselves did not become mainstream until the invention of the Kodak camera in 1888. So you can see here the progression from lists of names only to group photos to individual photos and information for each student. Yearbook photos might provide you an opportunity to catch a glimpse of your family member at a relatively young age. In some cases, this might be your only glimpse. An example, recently Andrea, who works at our information desk, had an opportunity to use yearbooks in a rather remarkable way. She had a call from a woman who had discovered the identity of her birth mother, and this woman had attended high school in Marshfield. The birth mother passed away before this person could contact her, and the new family was not very welcoming to the long lost daughter. They were not going to share any pictures. So she was looking for a picture of her mother, and the yearbook photo that Andrea found enabled this woman to finally see her mother for the first time. So they can be a really fabulous tool, and this is just one way to make it easier. So in addition to providing the pictures, yearbooks can also give you a glimpse of a person beyond just their birth and death dates. You might be able to determine what their interests were, which sports or clubs they were a part of, if they were a part of band, choirs, or plays. If you're lucky enough to find their personal copies, you might even find some signatures or messages from their friends and classmates. Was your grandma voted the most likely to succeed? Or was your grandpa the most popular? You might be able to find this in the yearbook. You might also be able to spot other family, including siblings and cousins of the person you're researching. And some yearbooks feature quotes that were chosen by the seniors themselves. Yearbooks can also be a really valuable source of information about what was going on around your subject. There might be history or photos of the school or town. You might catch a glimpse of some current events in the time the yearbook was published, and you might be able to see what fashion trends or fads were popular at the time. Here I've got an example of the year 1972, where they were celebrating the centennial for Marshfield. You can also see here that at one point, boys were able to liberate consumer education by joining those classes. And a personal favorite of mine, I noticed that in the 1950s, these sweaters down in the right corner with very large animals were quite popular with the young men. So you see several sweaters with large deer and ducks. You might also be able to catch a glimpse of the school as it was. Most of these pictures here are from the 1950 annual. You can see the library, and there is kind of a hangout area with jukeboxes, and I think it's kind of cool. There is a radio station for the school. Yearbooks can also be valuable sources if your ancestors worked at the school. Many feature photos and information about staff and faculty, and they might indicate the position that person held, the subject that was taught, and where they completed their degree. We got a couple examples of through the years how the faculty was represented here. Smaller communities actually provide a better chance sometimes of finding identified photographs of your underclassmen. So you should really be certain to check every year that your relative would have attended. You can also remember that in some places, a high school education did not become standard until after 1900. So you might not find yearbooks that are older than that. Early copies of the Tiger actually had listings of the alumni, indicating which class they were from, who was the principal that year, and where they were now. One example here is a gentleman who is now a shoe salesman in Marshfield. It is a good idea to look through the entire book to figure out what else you can find. Here are a couple of examples of, here's one with autographs that we have. There's also a list of the courses that students were required to take for graduation back in 1905. I just want you to remember that when you're browsing online with our collection, the optical character recognition, or OCR, could be wrong or may just be missing things, so you might be missing out on information. Here is one example where an article from the Tiger Tales is printed on a diagonal, so the OCR completely ignores it. You can't copy it or search that text at all. We'll talk a little bit more about problems with the OCR later. So the Marshfield High and Marshfield Senior High yearbooks from 1950 to 2019, with a couple of exceptions, have been digitized to make them available online for searching and browsing. Missing years include 1967, 2005, 2013, and 2016. Our collection of physical yearbooks is much more extensive than this. It features other schools and a lot of other years. When the building is open, you are welcome to come in and browse this collection. The annuals are kept in a locked cabinet in the Felker Genealogy and Local History Room, so you just have to ask at the reference desk for us to unlock those cabinets. So our annuals were digitized as a part of the yearbook project through the Records Conversion Department from Oklahoma Correctional Industries. According to their website, OCI puts incarcerated individuals to work in a variety of capacities, including manufacturing, data entry, digital imaging, and more. The yearbook project is offered for free through a grant. It covers the cost of shipping and handling of the digitized items, as well as all of the work to do that. The project came from an effort to save yearbooks when somebody realized that libraries and schools throughout Oklahoma, and obviously beyond, were losing yearbooks to natural disasters, theft, or people just cutting images from them. The unique nature of yearbooks makes them really difficult or impossible to replace. So OCI uses overhead, non-destructive scanning methods to protect yearbooks and ensure that they were returned in their original condition. When we got our yearbooks back and decided we needed to put them online, we decided to take Clio and make that available online as well. Clio previously was only available in the library, and Clio is an electronic bookshelf. It has more than 1,500 titles, and it includes scans of state and county history books from Wisconsin and the surrounding states, including Illinois, Iowa, Michigan, and Minnesota. There are actually some titles too from Colorado, Georgia, Indiana, Kansas, Kentucky, Missouri, Ohio, Tennessee, Texas, Virginia, and also some parish registers from England. So there are about 182 titles that have Wisconsin as a subject. And a couple that I thought might be interesting were the History of Wood County, Wisconsin, published in 1923, the Biographical History of Clark and Jackson Counties, Wisconsin, from 1912, and the Historical and Biographical Album of Chippewa Valley, Wisconsin, including ancestral records, biographies, and portraits. So I thought this one was kind of fun, and I wanted to show this off a little bit. This is the Clark County, the Garden of Wisconsin, and it says here that it's important information for people seeking homes where the crops never fail. Let's see here, I just lost my little spot. It's highly productive soil, it's great timber resources, and it's healthful climate. This is a profusely illustrated volume that was published in 1890, and I like this little illustration down here of how tall the corn can grow in Clark County. One second, I gotta get my little guy back here. Do we have any questions so far, Bethany?
Nope, you're doing great.
Great, thank you. So to find our digitized annuals in Clio, you're actually going to go to our website. The library homepage is marshfieldlibrary.org, and you're going to click on the Adults tab. In that drop-down menu, you're going to select Genealogy and History Research. This is going to take you to our ERMPL Genealogy and Local History page. There's a lot of great information here, and you might already be familiar with a lot of it or have learned about it in our previous talks. The Marshfield Public Library Online Genealogy Index is an example of a great resource that is unique to our library. You're going to scroll down and you will see the listing for annuals and for Clio. And then this is going to take you to our Rescarta page. So this is what our collection looks like on Rescarta. Rescarta is actually an open source software package for making local history and published digital content available. Open source generally means that it's made available with some abilities to edit and change the software to kind of make it how you need it. You're going to use these tabs at the top to navigate to your different options. We're going to explore those right now. The first one is the Browse Collections tab. And you can see two of our collections here, well, the two we've got. That's the annuals with 65 items or titles, and Clio with 1,596 items. You can click the collection title to open it up, and then it'll let you scroll through the different titles we have in that collection. The next tab is our Browse Titles tab, and you can see a list of all 1,661 titles that we have that are available on Rescarta. On the left, you can see options to limit your browse. You can limit by author, publisher name, place of publication, year published, month published, subject topic, subject state, and subject county. So this data was input when they were scanned, so it's limited to tags that would have been applied. Our next tab is our simple search tab, where you have the option to search all the collections or select one of them. In our case, it's our annuals or Clio. And I will be going over this searching more in depth later and kind of showing you some examples. That next tab is the Help tab, and that will open up this page, which will open up in a new tab in your browser. It has some basic help or tutorial information, and since it opens up in a new tab, you can actually easily close that to return to your previous page. Once you've selected a title you want to explore, it will add a new tab labeled Image Viewer. So the main part of this screen will show the scans, and you'll get one page at a time. On the left, you can view thumbnail previews of each scan to help you navigate. There's a Content tab, which will allow you to view page information if you have anything specific there. And Image will give you some technical information about the title that you're viewing and how it was scanned. Along the top of the screen, there is a bar with quite a few options for navigating and interacting with that title. We are going to zoom in and get a little more familiar with those. Anytime that you hover your mouse over these icons, you should get a description that pops up to help you figure out what it is if you can't tell. So on the far left, we have the small hand icon, which is our pan or our zoom tool that will allow you to move that image around as you need to. And then in about the middle of this bar, there is a green arrow that's going around in a circle, and that will rotate or turn your page 90 degrees clockwise should you need to. And for most of ours, you shouldn't have a problem. I didn't see any that were rotated in a way you couldn't read them. To move your view closer, you can use the zoom in key here, or you can press the plus key on your keyboard. To move the view away, you're going to press the zoom out button or your minus key on your keyboard. You can also use that little bar to manually select the zoom that you want. Anytime that you zoom in or out, this new zoom level will remain for all the pages of the current title until you change it again. When you open a new title, the zoom level will be automatically reset. There's blue arrows that are going left and right or up and down, and those allow you to adjust your zoom so that the page or the image automatically fits the page width or height. On the far right, there is arrows pointing to the corners, which will remove the menu and enlarge your viewing area to full screen. It's not completely full screen, but it does give you a little more room to work with. On the left, next to our little hand icon, we have a small pair of scissors, which is our text clipping tool. This allows you to clip text from the image, kind of like copy and paste. If you click on your scissors, you can then click and drag to highlight the text you wish to select. So your text will be highlighted blue. You will need to be careful to get the entire selection you wish to clip. It doesn't follow lines, so you could accidentally, cut off a part of a word or even one of the characters. Once you let go of your click, a box like this will appear, and that'll have your selected text in it. Now, the quality of the text depends on the quality of the optical character recognition. You can see here that there are actually some issues with the word confidence. This is a good example of why you cannot rely on searching just by itself. It will be a good idea for you to kind of page through and look for more hits in the text. Once the text appears in the dialog box, you are able to copy that text using your copy commands. For example, it's Control-C in Windows, or by right-clicking. This might also be helpful if you're having trouble reading the scanned image for some reason. And as I mentioned before, there are some cases like odd type styles, text on diagonals, or handwriting, where the OCR may not recognize your text at all, unfortunately. When you are navigating your document, you can use these blue arrows to navigate to the first page or the last page. Or you can use these ones to move one page at a time. We have our previous page and our next page buttons. You can also select a specific page in the title using this drop-down box. I do want to point out here that the page numbers for yearbooks start with the first page scanned, which is often the cover, and they don't correspond to the numbers on the pages. We'll talk about that a little bit more too. Our little icon that is a letter I in a blue circle is our information or metadata for this item. It includes the publication information and a copyright statement. And that statement reads, some of the images in this collection may be copyrighted. It is the user's responsibility to identify the copyright owner and to obtain all necessary clearances before making commercial, broadcast, or other use of this material. There is also an option to print this little record. For your thorough records with your genealogy project, you might want to print this page just so you remember where you got the stuff from. There is also a printer icon on the right, which will bring up your print preview for the current page. From this screen, you can, up in the right, download the file, or you can print it. And the three little dots will give you additional options, including such as including your annotations with your prints, which is also handy. Our little magnifying image up here will give you the option to search within this title. And so that'll limit to just the one you're browsing. When you click on that, your little search box will pop up and you can type in the text you're looking for. Here is a search I was gonna do. And you can see I got no results. So this is the dialog box that will pop up when your search is not successful. And if you go back and look at your notes and your typing, you might see where you went wrong. And then you can try again. So this time I actually got something up at the top, and you can see the text we searched for and how many hits exist in this title. Just below that, you can see the page number for the current hit and the two small buttons that will allow you to jump to the next hit or the previous hit. In this case, there are 2 hits highlighted on this page, but it actually is counting as just one hit. Hits are considered pages instead of individual occurrences on the page. And then this is a good example of how the page numbers indicated do not correlate directly to the page numbers within the book, but instead with the page number of the scan. This is page 3 of the yearbook, but indicated as page 7 of the scan up here on the top, you can see. In this case, page 1 of the scan is the outside front cover, page 2 is the inside front cover, and so on. It can be a little bit confusing when you're referencing page numbers and potentially referring to the actual text, but it does save us from having any negative page numbers or having pages that are not included in the scan. If you want to click the next hit button, it will take us to page 98 in this case of the scan. And you can see our hit highlighted again. Our next hit button is now grayed out because there are no more hits, but the previous hit button is now highlighted and it will take us back to the first or the previous hit. If you want to do a broader search, you're going to use our simple search tab. This will search all the collections, or you can select just a specific collection that you want to search. You can search in specific fields, but you have to keep in mind that narrowing to specific fields will limit your results. I recommend just doing the basic search. It's probably your best bet. You can also search by date to see titles within a certain date range, or click this little plus sign next to the all fields, and you can add in additional search terms. That's the best way to do that. Here's one example of how frustrating the OCR can be. I picked a random name out of the index of the 1997 edition of the Tiger, Ryan Tom. I was actually intending to play around with our multiple search terms, but when I tried searching for Ryan Tom, THOM, I got nothing. There was no hits, and I can see that it's here somewhere. So in the index, it does tell me that there should be things on page 15, 94, and 123. But there was no search for Ryan Tom, and when I searched for Tom, Ryan, I only got this one result. So I navigated to the first page that was mentioned in the index, which was page 15 of the yearbook and 19 of our scan, and I found the name and highlighted it using our text clipping tool. And that's how I discovered that the OCR was actually interpreting the name as THORN instead of the THOM that it should be. These sorts of issues are pretty common with OCR. They depend on the quality of the OCR software, the quality of the scan, and the original text, how we interpret those things, and a lot of other factors. While searching is handy, you may resort to just scanning the images for your subjects. Well, reading and scanning the images on the computer might be preferable to manually scanning on microfilm, which I kind of hate. I would argue that it's much easier to page through the physical text if it's available. I did do a simple search for Ryan Tom, and I was able to find him in the 95, 96, and 98 yearbooks with no problems. It was just this 1997 one where the font was giving us problems. So a couple of tips for searching. Searches are not case sensitive, so you don't have to worry about your capitalization. There are some search terms must include a minimum of 3 characters, with the exception of searching for state. If you want to do a state search, you're going to use your subject state search selected from the search fields. You are able to use wildcard characters in Rescarta, but not for the first character of a search. You want to use asterisks, you can use it to replace any number of characters. For example, DECID asterisk will find decide, decider, and decided. The question mark can be used for a single unknown character. For example, DECIDE question mark will find you decider and decided. Words that cannot be included in your searches unless they're a part of the phrase are and, has, not, and the. And you also cannot use the characters colon or quotation mark. So this is some advice from Rescarta on searching for multiple terms with connectors, kind of known as, to some of us, as using Boolean operators. If you want to search for more than one term using these connectors, you're going to want to put each of them in their own search box, employing that little plus sign we saw earlier. So if you're searching with and, it will require that all of the terms exist on the page. So in the instance of our Ryan Tom, a search for Ryan and Tom brought back a page that had Nathan Tom as well as several Ryans with other last names. You're going to get more things. A search for or will find any of your search terms. So you'll get more hits. If you search for Bob Smith, you'll bring back every mention of Bob and every mention of Smith. If you use not, you'll find titles with the first term, but not pages that contain the first term with the second term. So a search for Ryan, not Tom, will find you all the other Ryans, but not Ryan Tom. If you search for Ryan near Tom, you will find instances where the first term appears within 5 words of the second term. So it'll help you find things like Ryan and Nathan Tom. This can be really helpful if your subject is mentioned with other members of their family, or if their name is separated for some reason or other. To see some of that in action, here is a search for Don and Schnitzler in our annuals. Here you can see that we got 5 titles that have instances of Don and Schnitzler, and you can click to open up one of them to see your results. Curiously, in this instance, we can see that while it is picking up both terms on the page, it is not doing so quite accurately. Only one instance of Schnitzler is highlighted, but we can see that there are 2. If I use our trick with the text clipper, we can see that the OCR is having issues with Schnitzler, and it's seeing that Z as an X instead. There really isn't a lot of rhyme or reason to sometimes how it misinterprets things. If we want to search for Don or Schnitzler, we get a lot more results because we're looking for both those terms. We have 63 volumes that will have either Don or Schnitzler in them, and we know that some of these might have multiple hits on the page. We also know that these aren't all our Don, but in cases where we're recognizing a problem with the OCR, it might be helpful to find more hits that we would otherwise miss. Searching for Don, not Schnitzler, seemed about as useful as searching for Don or Schnitzler, but I wanted to show you searching for Don near Schnitzler. Again, we want to remember that our OCR struggled with the name. This time we ended up with 2 titles returning results. And this one shows you where it found Don Schnitzler, Schnitzler, and Don on the same page, all within close proximity. So that 5-word limit kind of helps us out a little bit here. So searching by date, we talked about earlier, is not particularly helpful with our annuals collection because you can really just pick the one you want and search within it. I did want to show you a quick search for Marshfield by date in Clio. So I searched for Marshfield and wanted to find results in 1900, 1901, and 1902. The dates are in the year, month, date format. So I put 1900, 01, 01 in the first box, and 1902, 1231 in the second box. I ended up finding 25 volumes in Clio with publication dates between 1900 and 1902 that mention Marshfield at least one time. Here is a quick example of one of our results. And this is also one time where you want to remember that you can move between the pages of the text by clicking our previous page arrow or by clicking the thumbnail before the highlighted one, as we're getting just a little section of this snippet from this book, and it's out of context. So backing up a page or more will help you understand what you're looking at, what's going on here. Now that you've mastered our digitized annual collection, you might want to search for yearbooks for family that attended other schools. Here are a couple of places that you can look for yearbooks online. So Ancestry.com has a pretty good collection, and I think they're adding all the time. There's also the Internet Archive and Cindy's List. I know there's a lot more out there. The other one that came up was this Classmates.com, but I will mention this is kind of more of a social networking site, and you do have to create an account in order to access anything. So I can't vouch for it. It might not be that useful to you, but it is one option you can explore. Well, that is all I have. Unfortunately, yearbooks are a short and sweet topic. So are there any questions we have, Bethany?
Nope, no questions have popped up, but we're going to take a moment in case anybody does have any questions they would like to share to take this moment to do so. This video will be archived on our YouTube, so if you need to look back on it, you can always do so. Additionally, if you come up with questions, you can use the information that is given here, or you can reference our YouTube and you can find Maida's email there. You can also just email the reference desk and we'll get you to the right place too, and they can also help. So Don does have a question for you. Any chance the library will digitize other yearbooks in their collection?
I think so. I will say that one of my goals is actually to digitize more things in our collection in general. I don't know if we'd be employing the OCI again or finding another method to digitize yearbooks, but I'd like to see a lot more things digitized and made available online.
I'm going to give it another moment. I haven't seen any other questions come through, but I just want everybody to have the opportunity in case somebody's currently typing something out.
Yeah.
I don't really have much more to say other than that, though. I kind of wrapped up what I needed to. Don did mention that it was a nice presentation. Thank you.
Well, thank you guys for letting me do this. I wanted to do this a year ago and things did not work out that way. So I thought I would use it as a chance to meet people, but it doesn't work on Zoom so well.
Especially a Zoom webinar. The meetings would have been easier.
It would have been, but next time.
All right, I haven't seen any other questions come through, so I think that completes this presentation this evening. Once more, I'm going to thank everybody for joining us, and thank you so much to Maida for this excellent presentation and showing us all the fun things and how useful and how to use Clio.